I just want to be free.
I can set you free.
Julie, welcome back to the program. So we have a name now. Jacob Cole, an anarchist. I'm sorry, Brian Cole, correction. Brian Cole, an anarchist from Virginia, found because of existing evidence inside of the FBI, no doubt phone records, that have somehow become uncorrupted magically. But this is now the identity of the alleged pipe bomber. The floor is yours. Nobody knows more about this. Does this official story pass the smell test? What would be the reason or the rationale for anybody in the FBI to overlook such evidence? I can't wait to hear what's actually happening here, Julie.
Right. So, Benny, I've been on your show, I don't know how many times over the past 4 years, talking
Thousands,
about all of the developments in the pipe bomb scandal, pipe bomb stunt, really, that it was, and other matters related to January 6th. So it does appear, though, that the FBI has a suspect who was arrested this morning in Virginia. His name is being reported as Brian Cole. There is some speculation and reporting from other corporate news sources that this individual is tied to Antifa. We will find out more. 1 o'clock is the press conference with DOJ, FBI. So we will learn more details and hopefully see the indictment. So for people who are unclear about who the suspect is, this is the individual seen with the hoodie on, with gloves, carrying the backpack. There he is, not a she, a he. There he is. Allegedly, this individual walking around Capitol Hill between 7:30 and 8:30 the night of January 5th, 2021, and allegedly planting those devices outside the headquarters of both the RNC and DNC, which are just blocks away from the U.S. Capitol. So this is the individual we believe that the FBI has been, we know has been investigating, but arrested early this morning in Virginia.
So that leaves a lot of unanswered questions, frankly.
Yes, it does.
For me. And one of your last appearances on this program, you were talking about the suspiciousness of the discovery of these pipe bombs, if you can even call them that, and how these devices were discovered, one, at the just perfect time in order to draw away resources from the Capitol, but then two, how mysterious the backgrounds of the people who discovered them, the reactions to Secret Service officers, so many questions left unanswered on that day. Let's start there on the actual day itself, the physical evidence that we know, Julie, and then I'd like to extrapolate to the greater FBI and why this sudden aha moment. But if we could start there on the day, what physical evidence would you need to see to get locked into this story and say, you know what, yes, this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now it suddenly makes sense. Me, the preeminent reporter who has blown so many holes in the official narrative, I now agree with this timeline. What would you need to see, loose ends would you see tightened up?
So, Benny, to your point, and I still stand by this. Now, I'm willing to be open-minded, which is not like me, but I will be in this instance. As you and I have talked about, and I think a lot of evidence points to, there are very suspicious surroundings related to the discovery of that device at 12:40, the device right near the RNC headquarters. The discovery of that device by a woman who was doing her laundry that day, decided to do it at noon and then go back at 12:40, where she said she found this device that now we have been told, and the FBI, including this FBI, has been saying for years was planted the night before. The 12:40 discovery is important because the joint session of Congress began at 1 o'clock, just a few blocks away at the U.S. Capitol. So what happened there, and I know you had Chief Sund on, he probably talked about this, the diversion of resources, law enforcement, personnel, police, away from the Capitol to the RNC to try to figure out if this device was legit or not. Now, it's very important also to underscore, these devices were not viable. We have FBI analysis that was conducted at Quantico actually early on that said, while it looked viable, and we had FBI officials telling us for years, not this FBI, the old FBI, that it was viable. However, they were not. So this woman also, and I've got a lot of reporting on her at my Substack, Declassified with Julie Kelly. She's tied to law enforcement. She was working for FirstNet, which is this private public partnership to provide broadband during crises or disasters. So she has law enforcement ties, which always was kind of suspicious to me. Fast forward then to the discovery of the DNC device, where what we've talked about, allegedly sitting there for 17 hours, missed by at least 2 bomb sniffing canine units, missed by police officers from Capitol Police, DC Metro Police, Secret Service, because Kamala Harris arrived at the DNC headquarters at about 11:25 a.m. on January 6th, all having missed this device sitting under a bush between 2 benches in front of the DNC headquarters, right next to the garage where all these police vehicles and Kamala Harris had been driving there. So I'm waiting to see what the details are of this suspect's involvement. If there are ties to him and perhaps others who either found the device at the RNC or the Capitol Police officer who found it about 1:05 p.m. on January 6th. There will still be a lot of questions, I think, even after the press conference and the charging documents are released. However, this goes a long way, as you know, in debunking other stories and theories as to who that person was on video January 5th, 2021.
Does it even stand? I mean, because, so you can say that this individual perhaps, and this is the first time I'm hearing of this, and we've been live for the last 2 hours. So is there Antifa ties? I mean, you did mention that in your first answer. Is that just alleged at this point that there is far left wing ties?
It has been alleged by one corporate news outlet. I think it might have been ABC or NBC, and they had the scoops early this morning.
Okay.
One of those, it might have been Fusion Ken, actually, that this individual had what he called anti-fascist. So they report it that way, anti-fascist ties, meaning Antifa. So, Benny, again, this will raise a lot of questions and could potentially answer more questions as to why Chris Wray's FBI and Joe Biden's DOJ, although this was a hot investigation early on after January 6th, a lot of resources devoted to investigating the pipe bomb, releasing that video of this hoodie suspect, interviewing neighbors, trying to track down the purchase of those shoes that you showed, the backpack. I mean, this was a pretty intense investigation for the first few months. Then all of a sudden, everyone dropped it. And it was a cold case when Cash and Dan went in, made this a priority, devoted a lot more resources, some new agents, some new eyes on this case, some more updated technologies and availabilities to try to pinpoint the suspect, which apparently they did.
Any lead on what this lingering evidence was inside of the FBI that led to the apprehension? So according to our read on this, there was a pre-existing evidence from 2021 and 2022 investigations that they just had to, like, I guess, as the story goes, open the drawer at the FBI and just find, right? And that's been happening a lot recently.
Right.
Any idea what that was?
I don't yet. I've heard, some details about what that might have involved, but I think they really, Benny, had to go back and start from scratch in a lot of ways because this was such a cold case. And I can only assume, to your point, that evidence had been hidden, evidence had been tampered with, evidence maybe even destroyed. We know, ironically, the organization that informed the FBI that the cell phone data from January 5th had been corrupted. Remember that there was no cell phone data in that area available for January 5th. The entity that told the FBI was FirstNet. So I guess we're still supposed to believe that this was just a coincidence between FirstNet saying that there's no cell phone data, which, if that's true, that's a huge problem because they provide broadband to first responders in emergencies, crises, etc.
Right. Like, you're not very good at your job. Yeah.
Exactly. But also that this woman who decided to do her laundry at noon and then went back and all of a sudden found the pipe bomb right by this dumpster, that she also worked for FirstNet. Now, this woman, Carlin Younger, and she's done a bunch of interviews, so it's not verboten to say her name. She told the FBI on January 8th and on January 11th, 2021, that the device was not there at noon when she went to start her laundry, that it had to have been planted between noon and 12:40 when she allegedly discovered it, because she did not see it on her first trip to this little communal laundry room that she accesses from her building. So again, I'm very curious to see who this individual is. And then we'll just have to do more digging and rely on more information from the FBI and law enforcement about potential ties to the discovery at the RNC and DNC, still having to believe, defying all logic, common sense, other evidence, that both of these devices sat there undetected for 17 hours and just eureka were discovered right when the joint session of Congress was set to begin at 1:00.
Not really hard to see them there, Julie.
That's why she said it was not there at noon. That's why she said that.
Pretty
it's not small.
I mean, it's like pretty obvious, and so was the other one. You can see it with the naked eye. It's not like they were hidden,
right?
And it's not like these were the only people that were walking around. They're like shiny metallic devices. There they are, clear as day, literally sitting out in the open, like doing zero job to actually obscure any of these devices.
Well, here's why we'll touch a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again. The Blaze story about this individual being a Capitol Police officer, among other reasons, never made any sense, because if you're a Capitol Police officer, you understand that there's security cameras everywhere. And even if you are wearing a hoodie and a mask and covering everything up, you've got cell phone. I'm hearing also reports that this individual had more than one cell phone. You know that you're being recorded. And this person was in no hurry, right? Appeared to not be aware that there were cameras everywhere, that this individual was walking around.
Right.
Not for 5 minutes, for 45 minutes.
Yes.
In some instances, retracing his steps. So that was another odd angle as to the reports by the Blaze that allegedly identified this individual as a female Capitol Police officer. So again, and Benny, if this individual is tied to Antifa, it explains why this has been buried for so long. Because think of what was happening in early 2021. The whole insurrection narrative was being developed, that Donald Trump incited people to storm the Capitol. He was being impeached over it. This was the only thing that the media was covering. And part of this narrative was that a MAGA person, set these devices outside the RNC and DNC the night before to either blow up the buildings or to launch what they described as this terror attack on January 6th. Had anyone else been arrested, March, April 2021, especially someone with, say, a social media footprint about Antifa or ties to Antifa, the entire January 6th narrative would have disintegrated right then and there, as our friend Darren Beatty, and I miss him today. I wish he could talk today. I wish he could be somewhere. But as he has always said, once the pipe bomb matter unravels, all of January 6th unravels. And if this person is a leftist or a Democrat or even tied to any of those organizations or that party, this explains why they did nothing with this for 3.5 years after they opened the investigation.
Just 2 quick points on this, Julie, very, very quickly here. One, we know that there are BLM and Antifa activists that were charged on January 6th with criminal activities. Mm-hmm. One of them got 7 years in prison. One of them got 4 years in prison. One of them got 3 years in prison. There were multiple BLM associated Antifa leftists that wore MAGA apparel, LARPed as MAGA, to infiltrate the crowd and to commit crimes, to smear the MAGA movement. That is a matter of demonstrable fact. Here's one of the felony charges. Maybe you went to some of these trials. So the left using this as an opportunity to try and cripple MAGA and to throw egg on the face, that's already something that's happened. And so if this was in line with that. 2, something that you've talked about quite extensively on this program is Thomas Crooks. We're now finding out that Thomas Crooks was like a dyed in the wool, like left winger, Trump hater, transgender, furry, curious, like deeply disturbed leftist. And they kept that from us, Julie. That would have made, and I guess it's hard to relitigate history, but if we had found that out right after Trump was shot, that a leftist was trying to kill Trump, not just some sad young man who lived with his parents, but a leftist, like an actual somebody who hated Trump, it would have framed the election totally differently. It would have changed everything in the 2024 election. I think Trump could have won 40 states. And they kept that from us. They had that information. They kept it from us. And in fact, the FBI went and lied and said, actually, he's a right winger. And so they gave only a half truth about Thomas Crooks. So I guess I'm starting to see that pattern play here potentially, like that same pattern where they're covering up something for political expediency that they know would destroy the narrative.
Right. Well, this would have been the biggest narrative destroying event, torpedo the entire J6 narrative, had this individual, if reports are accurate, tied to Antifa. Think of what we would have been spared over the past 4 years.
Of course.
Instead of allowing this FBI, the Chris Wray FBI, Biden DOJ, to use the events of January 6th to launch this war of terror against American citizens, rounding up almost 1,600 of them before the president thankfully won the election. So, but look, Benny, aside from, and you just showed the indictment of John Sullivan, and he was not trying to hide himself. He was on video. He was recording a lot of things that were going on. He was inciting some of the things. I believe he was right. They're not far away when Ashley Babbitt was killed by Michael Byrd. But also, since then, we know, and we have seen, posted this, DC undercover police officers who are arriving at the Capitol on the early afternoon of January 6th. And you can see people who are on Capitol grounds telling DC Metro, there's Antifa over there. We can see, there's video on Capitol grounds of these little guys in black bloc, with their masks and all black and backpack, running around, scurrying around Capitol Hill. And you hear one police officer respond and say, that's why we're here, to get Antifa. So, but we've seen none of those intelligence products. Chris Wray right away said that there was no evidence Antifa was there. He said that early on before there was any way he could even determine that. So again, this is just part of what we've already pieced together with video, with documents about the discovery of the devices, but also now who actually allegedly planted them the night before.
I guess we'll start to actually see it all unravel, and this is going to be a massive day for Cash and Dan, and a huge proving ground. And if they are able to bring this and then get it to stick, and able to uncover the broader network of what happened here, man, this will be a huge win. In conclusion, here, Julie, what would you like to see happen next? I mean, what threads need to be tied up with Nancy Pelosi on that day? Where would you like to see Loudermilk go next? I know that he's directly involved. I mean, he spoke to Stephen. He said he called Stephen's son right away when this happened. So Loudermilk's clearly pushing for all of this. What would be your advice to the new J6 committee? Amazing that they spent $20 million on the last J6 committee and didn't come up with any of this information. Isn't that remarkable, Julie?
Right. At least 20 million. I think it is, recall that when that 840-page report was released by the J6 committee, they mentioned the pipe bombs 5 times. I mean, there should have been an entire chapter devoted to the pipe bomb story, the pipe bomb mystery. The J6 committee didn't even interview Stephen D'Antuono, who is the DC head of the Washington, DC FBI field office, who led the investigation into the pipe bombs. They didn't even interview him. Kamala Harris never talks about her brush with death, her near brush with death that day. And in her book that was recently released, she mentions a pipe bomb incident 1 time in 2 sentences. That's it. So none of that adds up either. So
it was a leftist. Sorry to interrupt you, because it was a leftist.
It was a leftist apparently the night before, but I still have questions, and I will still this is what I will keep pushing. And I will keep pushing Chairman Loudermilk on this as well, and the FBI.
Please.
Is there a connection between this individual, the individuals who discovered it, the Capitol police officer, and then the woman tied to FirstNet, Carlin Younger? Maybe there are no ties, but maybe these devices were planted. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they're just catching the person who was on video. There's no part of that lengthy video that shows this hoodie individual actually planting anything by the RNC. Correct. He walks by a court near that area, but there's no video of this person setting it down. So there's still, I caution everyone, including myself, also to be open-minded, but this is not a crime that has been solved even with this person in custody right now. There are still going to have to be a lot of threads pulled, as you said, tying them together, and then also exposing why the Chris Wray FBI memory hold this whole thing, buried it from the American people, once again to protect Democrats and try to sabotage Donald Trump and his movement.
I know that we have to go here, but I just can't. There's one thing I just can't, because the last time Darren Beatty was on our program, he talked us through for 30 straight minutes how the DNC security camera footage had been intentionally doctored and downgraded. And he gave us like demonstrable evidence that somebody was manipulating the actual footage of the pipe bomber that they were showing to the public. Like who the F was doing that? What were they like? And who has the power to do this exactly? And why? And can we please get an explanation for this? Right. Because the year is 2021. This is not what security footage looks like. This is not what these cameras. Somebody is intentionally degrading the footage. Right. Is this an actor? Is this an actor? Is this actually even happening? Is it all like kabuki theater?
Well, I'm hoping we get some answers on that too, because Darren Beatty did, and he was the one who discovered that years ago, that this security camera outside the DNC, that footage had been intentionally manipulated, slowed down. So, and even the footage in other locations, Benny, very sketchy, which also raised questions as to how they could do this gate analysis at the Blaze using any of that FBI security footage, because it is so choppy. It's choppy everywhere. So hopefully we'll get some answers about that too. But Benny, I love you. I have to run. You are the greatest.
We love you, Julie.
I will be back on soon, I'm sure.
Bye. Bye, Julie Kelly. You're the best. Follow Julie.
You are.